You know, I'll finish with this. I grew up with a speech challenge. So when I went to first grade, no one understood me. So I can remember vaguely going to a special school for about 3 weeks, and they evaluated me. My sisters have told me a lot about this. And they sent me back to regular school. Said he can be in regular school, but he's going to need to be in what we call back in those days resource. Thank God for sensitivity today. Thank God that so many give their life to help children that have a challenge or a situation. It was rough back in those days. You just roll up in homeroom, about 8, 10, hey, got fish sticks today. Let's get those resource guys down here. God help them. It's just brutal. I can say it because I lived it. And so for about 8 years till the 8th grade, I went on to high school and they made some other adjustments. And I look back on my life and I thank God for these speech therapists. There was one lady that stayed with me for 6 years. Never made me feel weird, never made me feel less, valued me. Helped me through when I say my R's or I'd stutter, I couldn't say wood, I'd say wood. I'd say certain words. She just worked with me. Then I'd go back, about 12 or 30, you go back to regular class. And so 12:30, I go back to regular class, spend the rest of the day there. And I excelled in 2 of the courses in regular class. The first one was honors recess. I kill honors recess. Just dominating it. And then the other was something we did every once in a while, which we call show and tell. Show and tell, I was good at that. And so I remember one time about 6th grade, 5th, 6th grade, so at the end of the year, we're gonna have our end of the year school party. And so she said, hey, right before we have our party, let's do a big grand finale show and tell. It's gonna be a big grand, kind of Super Bowl of show and tell. Like now we all fired up about it because I excelled in there and resource could represent, get a little shout out. And so so she sent around a sheet of paper, had your name and a blank sheet. I was second to last, had another kid that was last. He sat by me. And he didn't talk to me much. He wasn't down with resource. And he was, kind of high level. He always threw shade at me and just kind of thought he was better than everybody else. And so anyway, I write mine. His next, I write G.I. Joe. Come on. G.I. Joe. Gonna bring it from the house. And I'm gonna show it and I'm gonna tell about it. And then he sees mine. He writes G.I. Joe. Why are you trying to one up somebody? Why you got to be like that for? You look at everybody else's and you bring something different. That's why she did it. But then he handed it back to me with that kind of high level, uppity ego, pride look. So I gave it in. So like 3 days later, we start the show and tell grand finale, and we're going through it. He said, who would like to go first? Guess what? He raises it. Ooh, I'll go first. Ooh, he had that Eddie Haskell spirit all up on him. Come on, old school, leave it to Beaver. Y'all don't know that. And so, I'll go first. He goes up there. He's got his G.I. Joe. It's in a box. Please. What's a G.I. Joe doing in a box? He says, my G.I. Joe's in a box. It's special edition G.I. Joe. It's a perfect G.I. Joe. Never been touched, never been handled. My dad brought it here before this one. He's standing outside. He's got to go lock it up in a special edition room. It's got air conditioning. It's a special G.I. Joe. It's a scuba G.I. Joe. I don't know what's a scuba G.I. Joe. I ain't never seen the water. Don't know how to swim. He goes on and on and so fine. I said, okay, Chad, that's a lot. That's enough, okay. Hey, could you pass it around? Can't pass it around. Special edition G.I. Joe. You can't touch it. You just walk by and look at it. Dino, would you like to go next? Yes, I would. Shout out to the resource crew. Where you at? I brought my G.I. Joe. I had a G.I. Joe, but my G.I. Joe lived in the backyard in a mud hole with my dog that ran on a chain. My G.I. Joe, I lit its hair on fire. It had bumps. It had bruises. I strapped an N80 to its back and blew it up because my G.I. Joe had been to war. My G.I. Joe had seen some stuff in its life. My G.I. Joe had its leg pulled off. I had duct taped it because my G.I. Joe, he knew how to fight, and I lived with duct tape in my backyard. Well, I got done. I gave it to everybody said, hey, throw it up against the wall, stomp on it, tear it up. It can handle it. I got more duct tape. It's been in the jungle before. And I got done. Hey, everybody in the class gave me a big standing ovation. Whoa! Yeah, it's like shout, resource, resource. Let's have a party. Say, what does that got to do with church and hearing God's voice? It's got everything to do with hearing God's voice, because life is not lived in a special edition box. My life ain't perfect. My life ain't locked away. My life isn't all combed and nice. My life is lived in the backyard with a dog on his chain. My hair's been lit on fire. I've had M80 strapped to my back. I've lived through the battle, and he speaks to me. He speaks to me. He speaks to me. Come on, clap your hands if you believe that. That's life.